Hello there, and I am back with another video. Uh, I just want to discuss a little bit about my procedure or my experience while building my very first gaming PC. Some of you might laugh at my using that term gaming PC with the specs I provided, but you can play pretty good games on it. And it's under $400. But yeah, so here are some tips and steps to building your own computer. If you're a noob like me and don't know much about how to put a computer together, um, then these tips and tricks are here for you. If you are more experienced and have already built one or two, then maybe you can comment down below and mention some things that I might have forgotten, or if I'm wrong on some of things, go ahead and correct me. But this is just from my personal experience of what I learned, what I thought I knew but I didn't. Um, you know, so here we go. So first, the very first process before you buy anything on Craigslist or Amazon or Newegg or whatever you want to do, before you buy anything, you have to actually decide what you want to use your computer for. What you want to use it for, how much money you have to spend on it, and then how much physical room you have, how much room you can allocate to that setup. So if you have a lot of room, a big tower might be okay with you. You don't care, how much room. You have enough room, or you have an extra bedroom or something, or you have a large desk. You can put 2 or 3 monitors. So it all depends on your budget, what you want to use it for, and how much room you have available. Now, obviously, you only build a computer because a pre-built system does not meet your needs, whether it be power or some things that you want, some extra things, some like connections or some expandable room or something, or money. You might think, you might look at an HP computer at Walmart or Fry's or Best Buy, and it's like $500. Like, damn, that's a lot of money. I don't want to spend that much. You can, if you want to learn, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to dedicate time, you can actually build the same computer for a lot less, or maybe even get a really much nicer computer, and by that I mean better specifications, not just faster, but just overall quality. Um, you can get that for the same amount of money. So also you need to set up your priorities in the sense of, if you have roommates, you have to consider noise. If you share the bill, they might get pissed off at you that, oh, you just got a really huge computer with a huge power supply, and now they're gonna pay part of the bill for you. Some people might get pissed off at you, like I did with my roommate, back before I got my own place with my wife. Also he would run his computer all day, so it got really hot in the living room. It was like extremely hot because we didn't turn on the AC during the day because we were all at work. So you got to be considerate of others. Maybe if you live alone and you have like a 3-bedroom house, like, you don't care. You can do whatever you want with your room. That's fine. Pay for your own bills, right? But for some of us that don't have that luxury, you have to take that into consideration. You have to be willing to do a lot of research. So after you decide on the price point, more or less, and you have to be flexible with your price point. It can be a little bit go up and then go down, and then on what you want out of your system, you need to do a lot of research, especially if it's your first time building a computer. Don't be afraid of learning new things. It's a learning process. It's not as I don't think it would be as complicated as building a car from scratch. Some people have compared that to a car, but I think a car is a lot more complicated. Um, just because, well, for one thing, it's the size and all the moving parts that go together. A computer doesn't really have any moving parts per se. Maybe a couple of buttons, a couple of switches, a couple of knobs, some fans. You know, so don't be afraid of learning new things and reading a lot. And you might even want to ask, quote, stupid questions. They're not stupid. There is no stupid question unless you ask if you can put a goat in your computer. That would be a stupid question. But like a noob question, like like a good question that I had would be, what is a socket, or what is the socket size, or what socket size should I get? That, to a lot of you people that are more experienced, might say, oh, that's a stupid question. But no, if you don't know, it's a legitimate question of, you need to know because it's something important. And then we'll go into that a little bit later. Depending on what you want to do and how you want to use it, what you need to decide what to buy first. So let's go down a couple of scenarios here. So if you want the best gaming experience and you have like $5,000 at your disposal, I guess you could just hire someone to build it for you, or go out and buy one. Or if you don't have that much money, but you do have a little bit more money than other people, you can decide on the motherboard, and then maybe you want a motherboard with 2 or more graphic card slots. And this will typically be PCI Express version 2 or version 3, which was what we're using now, and 8 or 16 pins, usually 16 connections, and you'll see it's pretty long. You'll see it on the motherboard. If I show you pictures in my other videos, you'll see it. So you have to decide, if you're a little. So if you want to use it for light office work, so this is another scenario. If you want to use it for light office work, with light gaming, maybe get a motherboard with only 1 graphics card slot, and maybe even just 2 RAM slots. And RAM is random access memory. Basically, it's just the memory that the chip has, that the CPU has to use to run programs. The more you have, basically, the more you can run. And it depends on the programs, and depends on what other stuff you're doing, and it depends also on the CPU. But basically, that's the good rule of thumb. The more RAM you have, the more stuff you can do at the same time. So let's say, and those first 2 scenarios are for people that have more money to throw around than the average person. You want to spend a little bit of money today, and you want to upgrade down the line, then what you can do is you can start with the small motherboard. There's different sizes. I got a micro ATX in my build, but what you can do is you can decide on the larger case, and then you can get a small motherboard with just maybe 1 graphics card, or a CPU with integrated graphics with the modern socket, which basically just means that you'll see the more modern chips will fit on it. It's like I guess you could call it like a shoe size. All the CPUs have a certain shoe size, which is a socket size, and they only fit in a certain one. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of sizes. There's a lot of sockets. So in my case, I got which socket, G1151 or H1151. I forgot what it was. But basically, only Skylake and Kaby Lake processors fit on it, which is fine because Kaby Lake just came out, like 6 months ago, and Skylake is barely 1 year old or 1.5 years old. So I'm set there. And actually, in my case, I got the lowest and newest CPU, the Pentium G4600, with the mindset of it only costs $86. In 2 years, that chip will be kind of showing its age. Maybe I can get a Kaby Lake i5 or i7, and then put that on my motherboard and be able to run a lot better. And hopefully by then, those i7's Kaby Lake processors will go down in price, because by then they'll be a little bit older, right? So I guess you could say it'll be like the price of a Core 2 Duo. It is now, or was like a couple years ago. So that's what I'm hoping for, but for now, my G4600 is fine. So let's say you have another priority. Let's say you travel a lot, or you want to get into esports, and so your friend is telling you, you need to attend LAN parties, basically local area networks parties. Basically, what you do is you connect a lot of computers to the same hub at the same house, and then basically just play against each other or with each other. And you're basically you don't have to be in the same room, but basically you're in the same vicinity. You're not really using the internet to connect to each other. You're just locally there. So if that's what you're gonna do, then you need probably more portability. So which means that you need to get like you'll have to sacrifice like high-end performance and get a small form factor case like the Alienware Alpha or a lot of other cases that are a lot smaller than your average tower case for your average computer. And you might want to sacrifice DVD drives, even though you don't really need any. And then maybe you might say, okay, well, if I really want to go small, then I need to get a motherboard with M.2 storage devices slots. Basically, it's a new slot. It looks like a stick of RAM, actually. If you know what RAM looks like, then you'll see that M.2 looks different, but it looks similar in size and just how it looks. You can see like inside. Whereas a hard drive, you just see the metal around it and maybe like a circuit board on one side, or a solid state, which looks like a hard drive, but it's thinner and smaller and has basically the same connections. But M.2 is a different connection for basically you can get more space efficient with your storage, but that is going to cost you a little bit more, and you might have to get a smaller graphics card with just maybe one fan instead of two, a shorter one. Definitely get a smaller motherboard if you want portability, and your motherboard might only have 2 slots for RAM like mine, which you think, oh, you might be fine because I can get up to 32 gigs. I'm okay with that. So let's say your roommates sleep at odd hours, or you sleep at odd hours, and then you share the room with people. You need to get the quietest power supply. Maybe you might want to go with water cooling. Some people might say, oh, even if I wear headphones, I can't hear the fans, but I sleep next to someone and I don't want to bug them. So you have a bit different priorities. Okay, if you are really stretched for money and don't even have and you have like some older equipment, like let's say you have an older monitor that doesn't have an HDMI capable monitor. Let's say your monitor doesn't have HDMI, then you don't need an HDMI on your motherboard or your graphics card. Then that might save you some money, but you should really try to get enough money for a graphics card with HDMI. That's the new norm now, and then you can plug it into TVs as well, or get an adapter. You can do that too. But if you're really stretched for money, then you can dedicate or spend more money on your CPU and motherboard, and maybe just 4 gigs or 8 gigs of RAM like I did, and no DVD drive, maybe a small case, and then not get a graphics card, and then maybe save up for a year or half a year and get one later down the line. So those are just a couple of scenarios where you can go, a couple of scenarios that you can consider to buying a computer, or what you need out of a computer if you're going to build it. So once you have decided what you're looking for, it's time to get your parts. The easiest way to do this is to use PCPartPicker.com. Here you'll have to do a lot of reading and make sure your parts are compatible. And I go back to that socket size thing that I was telling you about, where a motherboard will have a certain socket size, and the CPU, the chip, won't match that. So then you can't use that. So you need to get another chip, another CPU. So what you should do is you should try to build a couple of computers on PCPartPicker.com, and you start with different things. So let's say you don't want to let's say you want a certain CPU. So first pick a CPU, and then that will limit your socket, which will limit your motherboards and RAM and other connections based on the motherboard. So let's say, and then you can do another build with start a graphics card, and then that'll tell you which motherboard you need to get, and then depending on the graphics card actual physical size, that'll tell you what case you can get. Or you can start with your motherboard to see what you can connect to it. So let's say you want 2 graphics cards and you want a USB 3 header like I did, then you'll need to make sure that the motherboard supports all of that, and then that will make you have to choose a case that also has the USB 3 headers. So that's what I was trying to go for. So I got that. If you don't care about USB ports in the front of your computer, you want to go all the way to the back, and you want to save money on that way, that's fine. But you don't really save that much money doing that. That's what I learned. So I just said, okay, I'll just get the the one with the ports in the front, and I really wanted that. That was like a need for me for my specific case. So, but let's say now,
I've got my
and now you have a lot of options for computer case. Let's say you want a certain computer case that looks a certain way or has certain functionality. You can pick one, pick a size, and then see what you can put in it. Usually, if you get a really big case, you don't have to worry about that at all. So let's say you want a pink case for some reason with blue lights on it. You can buy those, or you can make it yourself. But let's say that's what you want, or you want to get that for somebody else, and they demand a certain color, or that's their favorite color. Do that. So a case will limit your selections for other things. So if you want the smallest possible computer, you'll get the smallest. You'll start with the small case and the small motherboard. If you want the lowest power consumption, then you can start with like the lowest TDP. So that's basically just shows you how many watts the CPU uses. So what you can do is my CPU uses 51, which is like half of the more powerful chips, the more powerful CPUs. So then if you do that, and then you get a graphics card which mine is 75, and then those are the basic two biggest things of power consumption, then you can go off that. Make sure that you just sort on PC Part Picker by that specific parameter that you want to go by. Okay, so let's say you now have your builds. You have like 5 different tabs open on PC Part Picker, and you have 5 different computers. So once you have a general idea of what you want, what fits and what is compatible, you need to confirm it by looking at the official spec sheets from their respective websites and see if they match. And a good example is, in my case, I got my Kaby Lake CPU and my motherboard, which said that it does support Kaby Lake CPUs. However, you first need to do a BIOS update. So basically, you need to update the software on the motherboard before you even do anything else. And I said, okay, well, how do you do that? Yeah, I asked my coworker, and he'll explain the process. I'm like, okay, it seems pretty straightforward. I think we can do that. And I kind of do these type of things for work. So I'm like, okay, so it's the same. So you basically there's different ways of doing it, but basically the way that I was going by is, well, what sucks is that the motherboard demands a Skylake processor to be put into the socket on the motherboard itself, and then you can do the update for the BIOS. So okay, that's fine, but I didn't have access to a Skylake CPU, so that kind of sucked for me. However, and then so the CPU, the problem that I ran into was that the RAM that I had ordered was not showing up on time, and I had my CPU, I had my motherboard, I had the power, I had everything else except the RAM. So I had to go to Fry's and get some crappy RAM. I bought that, I put it in with my Kaby Lake CPU, and just crossed my fingers and hoped that the BIOS update was not necessary. To my surprise, it recognized the chip, the CPU, and I did not need to do a BIOS update, because if you look at the BIOS version, it matched the version that you needed on the website for that motherboard, and so it was able to communicate with that CPU, so I didn't have to go through the whole process of getting a Skylake CPU, returning it, and all that. So that's great. But I did realize that the motherboard BIOS version was still a little bit older than the most current one they had online. So I said, okay, well, I might as well update it now. So what I did was I downloaded the file online from MSI, which is my motherboard manufacturer. They give you a zip folder, you extract it. Now this is just specifically for this motherboard, and I'll tell you the details in the description. You extract that folder into your USB flash drive, you put it on there, and then you grab your USB flash drive, you plug it into your computer, into your motherboard. You start it up, and you go into the BIOS, and I think it's like F1 or escape or delete or something. You have to press it when the computer starts. It goes into BIOS, and then you just navigate through it it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. You navigate to say, okay, so I have my BIOS, I want to update, and then it asks you, okay, well, where is this file? And then you just guide it to the flash drive, and then you press update, and then it does this thing for like a couple minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. I think mine took like 3 minutes. Word of caution though, make sure that you don't unplug the flash drive, turn off the motherboard, or unplug the motherboard from the power supply or something. Don't lose power, basically. If that happens, you might just have killed your motherboard, and then it's done. You need to return it. You need to get another one. So if you lose it, if you're trying to do this in a lightning storm at your house, maybe wait until the rain is over and the lightning is over, because you might have power outages and then you're screwed. But yeah, so there was no problem with mine. So after you make sure that all your parts are compatible, make sure that you know what you want, make sure that they meet your money range, your cash range. What you can do is you can go and shop around different sites, and that's what's great about PC Parts Picker. That you can go on, you can pick a certain CPU, but sometimes the info is outdated. But if it's current, you'll get a CPU and say, okay, on this website it'll cost this much, on this other website it costs this much, and they always try to give you the lowest price.
What the fuck?
Sometimes that's 100% accurate, sometimes it's not. So you need to shop around a little bit, with the part number in hand or the model number in hand. You can go to other websites and just check, make sure that you can get a lower price one. And then here's where you need to be flexible with your money. And people say that and they think, oh well, you need to spend $40 more for this, you need to spend $10 more for this. But the whole point of building your computer is to save money, especially if you're just going to use it for light use. So let's say that maybe the part that you want costs $50, and then this other much nicer part usually costs $90, but it's on sale for $60. So then you have this other part that's really, really nice for $10 more. You might want to consider that. What if that's a motherboard and your $50 motherboard only has DDR3 RAM, which is a little bit older, but the new one for $10 more, you get DDR4 and more USB 3 ports. You need to consider that. Let's say you get a brand new CPU, Kaby Lake, and it's really expensive, but then you go a couple of generations back and it's like on a really good sale. Another like an i5 or an i7 CPU might be on a really good sale. Maybe you want to buy that. It's a little bit older, but you save tons of money, or you can use that money for some other parts. And then sometimes there's bundles with online stores, or even going to the actual physical store. Maybe a power supply you want, or maybe a power supply that you don't want, is matched with an even nicer case than the one you already picked, and it's still a lower price. Maybe you should get that. Maybe you don't get exactly the exact same thing that you wanted, but it's a lot cheaper, so then you should get that. Maybe it depends how willing you are to compromise. If you are not going to overclock your CPU, the stock fan, which comes with the CPU, is in the big box. The CPU is really small, but most of the box is taken up by the heatsink, which is just the metal fins that goes on top of the CPU and a fan on top of that. The heatsink may be adequate. That's the stock. That's in the stock box. Of course, if you're thinking about overclocking stuff, then this video is way too advanced for you. You're way too advanced for this video, if that's the case. So then, yeah, so that's another video. So, going back to specifically my case, like I told you guys, I wanted a USB 3 in the front panel, so that's why I got the case that I had. Personally, I don't care about a DVD drive. I really don't. I didn't really want one. I didn't really need one. Everything I do, like when I install computer software, it's all flash drive or downloaded, and I have a pretty decent speed internet, so I can download at home without really a problem. But that really only affected my case options. But my work gave me a DVD drive and CD writable drive. So I was like, well, they gave it to me, and I might as well use it. So, that only changed my case size and my case option by a little bit. But then I couldn't really find a case in my price range with a USB 3 header and without a DVD drive. I did look a lot. They're out there, they exist, but just for the price point that I wanted, they didn't really have it for me. So I got a bigger case with 3 DVD drives, 3 5.25 inches base slots, and for the DVD drive they gave me, and it works fine. It's bigger, I'm okay with it, and it was only like $5 more. So then the case I had USB 2 at the front and no 5.25 inches base slots. I did want HDMI 2.0 just to keep up with the times, and I also wanted DisplayPort 1.4 to future-proof my graphics card, so that limited my graphics card selection to a little bit more than the cheapest cards, but I was willing to spend that much anyway, so that's why I got picky with that. I really only wanted 16 gigabytes of RAM, but a motherboard with a 32 gigabyte capacity was actually cheaper because of a sale and a mail-in rebate, so I got that. And not only that, I was looking at DDR3 motherboards, and the DDR4 motherboard was actually cheaper, so I got that, and it actually supported 32 gigs. So sometimes you look, if you're shopping around at the right time at the right website and they're still in stock, you should get that. So that's why I got the motherboard that I got.
Herbal, come back. I got a battery for you.
I personally didn't care how my internal components for my computer looked. I really don't care. I wasn't going to get a case with glass so you can see inside. I don't care at all. But coincidentally, my graphics card was red, my motherboard was red, and so I got a case that had some red colors on the outside with a red LED on the fan. Also, I considered the fact that it was actually $1 cheaper than the blue version of that case. My my hard drive has a green label on it. You can't win them all, but at $40, I'm not complaining. It's 1 terabyte and 7,200 RPMs. And now more on the storage. I actually did want a solid state drive just because I have that on my Mac and it's really fast and I love it. And I don't think I could ever go back to a hard drive, a mechanical hard drive with spinning discs. But the best deal I saw was a Crucial for $130 for 525 gigabytes. That wasn't really $130. I didn't want to spend that much on storage. I'd rather spend that on other parts, so I didn't buy that. I was also looking at hybrid drives, but then I saw the 7200 RPM on sale, so I got that. So sometimes you want some things, but you're not willing to spend the money for it, then get something else that is okay for now. And since I have a bigger case, what I can do is, when solid state drives go down in price, I could probably get a 250 or a 500 for really cheap. Install Windows on that, and then use the one I have right now, which is a mechanical 1 terabyte for just the games, and just for storage, for extra room. I wanted my CPU to be upgradable in 3-4 years, so I got a motherboard that supports Kaby Lake. I got a free power supply, so I was conscious about my power demands. The CPU is only 51 watts, the graphics card is only 75, the motherboard is 60 I think, and the power supply is 384 watts max. So you do the math. I'm well within the limits. If I get a really powerful CPU and a really powerful graphics card, then I'll have to probably change my power supply later down the line. But for now, we're good. And just here, I have a summary of the table, and you can see that I have the components. I have the cost with. I live in California, so I get the California tax added on, and shipping to San Diego. So in San Diego County, that's where I live. So basically, and I hate it when people do a build online on YouTube and then they go, oh, you get this for $29.99. Yeah, but what about tax and shipping? It's not always free. Say, well, if you go with Prime on Amazon, you get free shipping. And yes, that's true, but then you also have to pay $10 a month every month. So you have to take that into consideration. I don't have Amazon Prime, I don't have Newegg, Preferred, whatever they call it. So my case was $33.78. My motherboard was $54.99 before tax. I didn't want to mess up by a penny or so, but so what I did was I just added the motherboard and the CPU together, and you'll see that it's actually $154.26 for both of those components because I bought those together. My crucial 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM is $58.85. Seagate Barracuda 1 terabyte, $43.19. I picked that up. My graphics card at Best Buy cost $118.51 total, and I picked it up. I had a $25 gift card for Best Buy, so that's why I went there to get that. And that was actually cheaper than other places. For that specific version of that graphics card, it was actually cheaper than Newegg, than Amazon, Tiger Direct, other, So you can see some pros and cons. The power supply was free. The DVD drive was free. My work gave me a free mouse, free keyboard, free mouse pad, free copy of Windows too, just because we have basically a lot of licenses, because that's what we work with. We don't really build computers, but we have a lot of computer hardware is what we do. But I'm not really on the technical side, the hands-on side at work. I'm more on the software side, and I've never really got into building computers, so that's why I didn't really know that much about actually building a computer. I know how to use one pretty well, but building is different. So the total cost out of pocket for me, when you consider everything, is $393.59. And then the pros that I got out of this was lots of learning, and I like to learn. It's a fun project to, like a little hobby. It's more powerful than your consoles right now, and it's still cheaper than a computer that's pre-built. So if you go to the store and you buy one for $400, there's no way you will get these specs on a computer that's pre-built. I can game on multiple monitors, which is great. I can work on this computer if I need to. The cons is the money is it's more expensive than the console. Now you can get an Xbox One S for $200, and I spent twice that. You have to invest a lot of time. You have to learn a lot, especially for noobs like me. You do have to do lots of research. Lots, not lost. I'm reading that wrong. No, so lots of research, lots of building. You might cut yourself, like I did. Like I cut myself twice when I was trying to move things around. You have to know how to use tools, install software, and know how to install drivers. In my case, learn how to install BIOS software. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on my next video. Bye.
At the end, man, that was awesome.